All right, chat. I want to piss you off just a little bit more. So let's go back to Hogwatch. Megyn Kelly, former Fox News host, who was given a job at NBC and then no one watched it, so she got fired, now has a podcast? She has, if you're in student loan debt, she has something she wants to tell you.
AOC was saying, I mean, not that anybody cares what she has to say in response to anything, but that was her push in response to these polling numbers and inflation and so on. She was like, if we could just stick to the agenda, get BBB passed, push this stuff through, and get rid of college debt for all, college students. She's back. She's a one-trick pony. Everything should be free. We should go back to our socialist roots. And then the Democrats won't be facing a bloodbath in November. And all these numbers will turn around. Free college for everyone. Didn't you guys have somebody pay for your college?
Okay, we're going to return to that because it turns out that she kind of did have someone pay for her college, Megyn Kelly. But I love the little slip up there of we should go back to our socialist roots. Wait, was that Megyn Kelly admitting that there are socialist roots in the United States? And also throwing out the theory that AOC doesn't genuinely want student loan debt to be canceled. It's not that Megyn Kelly is saying that that's what AOC wants. I disagree with it. She believes that this is an opportunistic strategic thing around the midterms, not something that AOC has been consistently advocating for literally years. But anyway, before we dive into the reactions, I want to give Megyn Kelly a little bit more time to make her case where she attacks the kids themselves burdened by student loan debt.
So, do I think now that, I would have been better off if the federal government had stepped in? Look, it would have been nice, but I don't think the neighbors should have to pay for my college education. We took out loans too, and then we paid those loans back. Why should these snot-nosed kids today? I'm sorry. The ones who really need it.
First of all, the cost of college was a lot lower. Here's something I tell boomers from time to time. And they can't believe it because a boomer will be like, I paid for my college. I paid for my college. I worked a job. I worked a minimum wage job. I paid for my tuition. Why can't you pay for yours? Well, here you go, boomer dumb fuck. I'll explain it. To afford tuition in 2020, public university students must work 6 times as many hours as students in 1970. Let's say you're a college student working a minimum wage job for the summer. Would you be able to earn enough money to pay your in-state tuition at a public university for the coming academic year? Assuming a summer break is 12 weeks long and you work 40 hours every week, that's 480 hours total. In 1970, at a rate of $160 per hour, you'd be able to earn $748 pre-tax, which is nearly double your tuition of $394 for the year. You also wouldn't have to work at all during the academic year, since there would be money left over after paying tuition. 25 years later, in 1995, working the same amount of hours for the then minimum wage of $4.25 an hour, you'd earn $2,040 pre-tax. This is nearly enough to cover 1 year's tuition. So this is now Gen Z, or excuse me, Gen X. This is Gen X. Gen X pretty much could pay for their tuition working the summer. Boomers could have double the money they need to pay their tuition, because you could see as the neoliberals get into office, they're slowly cutting federal and state funding for education, and tuition is going up faster than inflation, faster than the minimum wage. Fast forward to 2020. If you're working a full-time summer job for the federal minimum wage of $725, you'll only earn $3,480 pre-tax, which covers less than half of 1 year's tuition at a public university. In order to make up the difference, you must work 24 hours per week for the rest of the year. The trouble is, working this many hours per week while attending college is not advisable. Most education experts recommend that students carrying a full-time course load only work a maximum of 20 hours per week. Plus, these numbers don't account for housing, books, transportation, and other costs. In reality, to cover all their expenses, students have to work more than 24 hours a week. And this is for a public university. It's literally fucking impossible to do what previous generations did. Because why? Why is this? And I'll show you why. Boomers cut state funding for education. Sometimes you'll hear boomers go, well, it's because you guys need fancy dorms and student unions, and we didn't have any of that when we went to college. We had a small room, didn't even have air conditioning. You guys need to have all these fancy dorms. That ain't true. According to a study of 538, the share of tuition hikes since the 70s, since 2000, explained by budget cuts, is 100%. 100%. In some places, universities have actually been efficient and have kept tuition lower than the budget cuts from their state would explain. So the idea, like, here's the thing. Boomers think, well, I paid something, therefore I paid for my own college. No, you paid whatever your tuition was. But see, your parents, the guys who won World War II, the GI generation, they invested in you. They paid for your shit. There was a 90% tax on the rich. They actually paid your tuition. You fucking snot-nosed boomer. You turned around, yanked the ladder up behind you, told your kids you better go to college, and then cut the funding for it. That's what happened. So we just want what you got up front. We want it now because we figured it out. We looked at the data and realized you fucked us over.
They can get loans, right? But like you point out, a lot of these people are going to be these sort of college, Columbia elite graduates who are going to spend their years in journalism trying to shame half of America for doing absolutely nothing wrong. Why should I be paying for their college education? I don't want to.
Exactly.
Because prior generations did. It's called a society that you live in. What kind of society do you want to live in, chat? Do you want to live in a society where people who have potential and talent can get the education they need to fulfill that potential, or live in a society where someone, because they were born poor, even though they're smart and hardworking, can't get access to education, can't better themselves? What society is a better society? Fucking worthless.
She doesn't want to pay for them specifically because they disagree with her, I guess. And you, by the way, if you're a conservative watching whatever that show that she does is, you might be burdened by student loan debt. Your kids, your friends might be burdened by student loan debt. And I'm sure that pains you quite a bit. But somewhere out there, there's a kid that goes to Columbia. And wouldn't you rather own him by being owned by student loan debt managing companies for the rest of your life? You should continue to be burdened if that's what it requires to make some kid that goes to college in New York continue to be burdened by a student loan debt. It's a ridiculous argument, Brett. What do you make of it?
So it's April 6th, 2022, and this is the first time that a conservative has said that rich people should pay their fair share. And it only applies to student loan debt. And she's saying that there is no world in which education should be free. But education is free in this world. Your taxes pay for it. And you might go off and pay for a private school on your own. That stuff doesn't necessarily apply to all this. But in this situation, those folks, just make your decision on your own, but you still pay for public education. You still pay for public services and protections. New Mexico did this. New Mexico passed like a free college bill.
Who totally doesn't care what AOC thinks about this or anything else, decides to center AOC in the conversation. Now, I'm perfectly happy to center AOC in the conversation because she's been an amazing advocate for student debt cancellation. But it's a weird move for Megyn Kelly. Like, she says there, like, you want someone else to pay your student debt. But she goes on to say in the podcast that she had someone pay her student debt. She tragically lost her father when she was a teen, actually quite like me.
What?
In her case, though, her father had life insurance, and they were able to use the life insurance to pay off much of the student loan debt of herself and her siblings. Terrible experience. I don't begrudge anyone for having to go through that. but she did get someone to pay it off.
Jesus.
So, like, can't you factor that into it? Isn't it nice that you
And her
weren't?
dad didn't pay it. That was the insurance policy, which means all the people who paid their premium and didn't die paid your student loans. Why should all those people have to pay a premium so that you don't have to pay your student loan? You should refund them. You should buck up and pay for your own student loan.
Burdened for so long. She says it would be nice if someone else paid it off. But why should the student government do that? All of these people who actually need it, they can get loans, but that's the problem. We're not just talking about people losing access to higher education because of the high cost. That's a very real problem, by the way. But even the people who get access via the loans will be burdened by that massively, a crushing financial debt for literally decades. Like another home, they'll be paying for that. And that is going to rid them of much of their freedom, the word that you guys love to talk about, in choosing where to live, what sort of job to go after. Instead, they're gonna have to make most of their decisions based on the fact that they have to pay off these loans, and they will for much of the rest of their lives.
This is a pretty standard Republican move where you just kind of signal to some generic Ayn Randy sounding concept. But at the end of the day, your objective is just to maintain the hierarchy you've already set up. I understand that colleges frequently are just clubs. They're country clubs where you go meet people. Yes, you get skills, but you make connections that you can use to network later on. And maybe in certain situations, like some kind of vocational education would be better. But the reason Megyn Kelly wants to keep college expensive and all Republicans isn't because they think it's unfair to have rich people, get free college. It's because they want to make sure they keep the hedges as high as possible around the country club of power in America. And if you can go to a college based on your ability to learn and understand and ace tests there, then they've eliminated the true obstacle that they need to keep in place, which is keeping it really expensive.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is actually a really, really, really good point by Brett.
And if you're a conservative, like Brett's totally right. If you're a conservative and you're watching this, like I don't know exactly where Megyn Kelly went to school. We could Google it. I'm guessing it was a good school. And certainly
Notre Dame.
The other, he's gonna look it up. The other pundits, the politicians, they all went to these schools that they love to throw out there. Like they attack those schools to provide these faux populist credentials, but they went there. And those are the people that they end up marrying. Those are the people that they work with. Those are the people they associate with. They talk at you, pretending to be against the group that they are so happy that they are a part of. They are scamming you for their own benefit. And I understand it's difficult to identify that you've been scammed, but understand there's a support structure there for you if you can finally do that. We will accept you if you wake up to the fact that you're being conned by these people that are the very elites that they pretend to attack.
For more political news breakdown.
All right, so I think we did a college debt rant.